So thank you so much for coming on. I just want to begin by saying that I am your host for the rest of this week at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and whatever else that time is going to look like in the various different time zones, every day, today through Friday, I'm going to be doing a special social series on big personalities in small spaces, or actually in small places, spaces, places, whatever you want to call it. Now, before I get started on today's session, which is going to really talk about three of the key areas that I have been experiencing with a lot of my clients since the World Health Organization on March the 11th, which by the way was my 50th birthday, announced that COVID-19 was in fact a world pandemic, and that there needed to be some precautions set in place in the way that we, live our everyday lives. So since then, just to kind of preface things for you guys, I've really been bombarded, is probably the best word to use here, by a lot of my clients who generally come to me as a communications expert to help them with communication-centric strategies for campaigns that they may be doing for, events, branding, promotions, media, and marketing. And none of that has been happening almost to the day of when the pandemic was announced. And what in fact has been happening in my world in terms of the shift has really been that my clients have been coming to me for personal crisis management. So what I mean by that, and the best way for me to kind of encapsulate it in the most simplest of terms, is to really say to you that, now that we're in a situation where we're really, other than first responders, no one's really getting to go into work. We're in environments where we have to work from home. What that's really bringing to the table for us, I'm just going to silence this a second, guys. Just don't want to be interrupted while I'm talking to you. What this is actually bringing to the table, and I'm noticing through just really being extremely, aware of the situation through kind of my client base, is the fact that although we are social distancing, and it's a very necessary, mandatory manner for us to be able to kind of allow the first responders to do their work, to get the support that they need from all of us, to stay away from public environments where we don't really know what is or is not a place that's going to be healthy for us to be in. So being confined at home when we're used to for about at least 8 hours a day, a lot of the workforce is used to kind of being away from home. Now in North America and Europe predominantly, we live in environments of nuclear family units. Now these nuclear family units weren't really created to withstand large periods of time in small environments, which is what our homes are, and being in these environments with all kinds of personalities, often conflicting personalities. I mean, we love each other, we are family, like we know this, and it's not really being kind of talked about right now, and I felt we needed to talk about it. We know that we love each other, we are here for each other, we are here for our communities, we're here for our first responders, we're here for those people who are being affected the greatest. But with that, what's coming to the surface is the fact that we're dealing with an incredible amount of anxiety being in these kind of confined spaces, because although we are going through social distancing, from the public realm, we are, by default in a very opposite situation here in our homes. We are dealing with, dare I say it, way too much family time. I mean, family time was something that, we used to kind of have this term family time, whereby we would say to, ourselves that we are going to carve out a part of our day, week, month perhaps, to dedicate exclusively to the time that we spend and the relationships that we have and the communications that we want to have with the people that we love, right? And you know, it was predominantly because most of the time we're working, right? Now that's kind of been flipped on its head. Now, other than the first responders and those of us who are still fortunate to be able to work, most of us are, you know, tackling a home nuclear family unit in a manner where we weren't really, you know, maybe trained or maybe conditioned to be in for a long period of time with so many other people. So, you know, coming back to, you know, the big personalities in small spaces social series that I'm doing all this week, I decided to do it because I found that there were 3 fundamental communications issues or challenges that, you know, I found were the common denominators that these last 2 weeks I've been helping my clients kind of get through. And I wanted to be able to have the opportunity to share those with all of you out there in case you also are kind of going through the same kind of scenario. And, you know, like we almost feel guilty to say to each other that, you know, I'm having a real problem with not having enough me time, you know, in this space that we all live in, you know, with all of what's happening out there in the world. It's almost like a feeling of guilt that, you know, how dare we have this feeling where we kind of want to get away from each other when so much is happening and so many people are going through, you know, all of the effects of us not having yet honed in on being able to combat COVID-19. I say, as a communications expert and who has been dealing with this, as I mentioned, you know, like day in, day out for the last couple of weeks, you know, the byproduct of having to be in a social distancing space is the fact that we have to find very positive, collaborative ways that we can be together in our homes. So that really is what this social series is going to be about. I'm going to be talking to you, as I mentioned, about 3 areas that I feel are the ones that most people are suffering on. And what I'm going to do is, it's not going to be a deep dive here because they're really, you know, that's kind of like a whole other type of scenario. I'm going to just be talking to you from the perspectives of these should be things that you should be looking at right now, and that perhaps you're not looking at because you've got enough to deal with right now. Now, if you're one of those people that is like, oh my gosh, excuse me, hallelujah, finally, you know, I've got a reprieve from work. I can just kind of have some chill time and I'm totally cool having all the family time in the world. This probably isn't for you, but it may be for someone you know, that is a colleague of yours or a family friend of yours that's just really having a hard time with this. Because here's the other thing that we have to remember, folks, is that, you know, with a lot of people who are used to working in the workforce, and, you know, especially with the kinds of clients I work with people who are, you know, entrepreneurs, people who are in middle and C-suite management. So these are, you know, personalities that are very A-type. They're very leader-centric and focused. They need to feel productive and they need to see productivity in and around their area in order to feel like, you know, they're accomplishing what it is that they're setting their minds to accomplish. Now, when you come into the home environment, you know, that leadership, you know, kind of quotient that feeds, you know, the souls of these types of individuals, me being one of them. So I really do understand that focus. I mean, I work with people who are like me, basically. I understand why once they're in the home environment, they literally feel like, you know, there's a chaos situation happening within themselves. They don't really know how to kind of repurpose that energy into something that helps them feel the equal amount of, you know, positivity about being who they are used to being as leaders in the workplace, and, you know, and to kind of just really help with whatever it is that they're doing from a team perspective. And that's very difficult to do for a lot of people who are used to doing that in person and now are shifting to kind of like that virtual environment. So I'm going to be addressing a bit of that. Now, I'm not going to be spending any time at all during this week talking about what's happening from a global perspective, you know, the political ramifications, the social, the economic ramifications, the health ramifications, because that's a whole other type of show per se, for want of a better word. It's a different series. And I'm actually going to be tackling that as a special episode that I'm doing for Open Chess with Raj Girn on my radio show, which is airing next week on Tuesday at 6 p.m. PST and 9 p.m. EST. In England, it's airing at 2 p.m. And in India, I believe it's going to be airing at 6:30 p.m. So if anyone that wants to kind of, they want to get the facts without any of all of that, you know, stuff that's going on social media where we don't really know what's fact, what's fiction, and it kind of creates overwhelm. Tune into that episode, guys. And the way to tune in is you can tune in either through Spotify, through iTunes, through the free Dash Radio app, or through ruckusavenueradio.com. So again, next Tuesday is when I'll be doing a special episode to kind of bring to light the things that we actually really need to know without all of the kind of fluff and the, you know, the crazy memes, etc., that are being put out there, which, you know, if they're funny, I get it. I mean, it's great for some relief, but, you know, right now for me, I want to create some positivity, some shift of energy for people to feel more aligned with being their natural selves in such a unnatural, you know, time that we're currently living in. So to preface the three things that I want to talk about with you guys in terms of communications is I want to actually mention something that I feel is really important to mention. Something that, you know, people do talk about, but it's something that I haven't really, you know, brought to the table. It's not something I've really talked about a lot, but it's something that I vehemently believe in terms of kind of what kind of world that we've created as humanity. I believe that there are 5 very valuable skill sets that we as humans are never taught when growing up. We're not taught them at home. We're not taught them in the school system. We are not taught it in the workforce. We literally are left at our own devices to kind of figure out how to navigate our lives in these capacities. So I want to kind of address what these are. Number 1, and I feel is probably the most difficult and the most important one to wrap our heads around. And that is, we're not taught how to communicate. We're not taught how to communicate with ourselves, and we're not taught how to communicate with others. Now, I know that sounds like, but how do you really, I mean, all you have to do is open your mouth and tell people how you feel. That's one way of looking at it. But just think about if everybody in this world was to just open their mouth and say what they felt without any kind of understanding of whether what they are feeling is a positive expression of self, or even going to have a positive comeback from whoever it is that we're sharing it with, I think is something that we have to really start thinking about. Especially in this world of mass communication, so many platforms, so much information, so many people who have opinions that are being put out there. And I don't believe that there's really any one of us, to be honest, or very few of us that truly understand how to communicate. So that's number 1. And this week is really going to be tackling that. You know, we've got time sitting at home to learn something new. And I feel that my contribution after the 2 weeks that I've seen, after the 3 decades of my life that I've been in the entrepreneurial space, 20 of which in the media, marketing, branding, and events space, I've seen a lot of this. I've seen a lot of miscommunication, a lot of issues created because, you know, we don't just take the time to actually understand what the purpose and the power and the depowering on the other side that good and or bad communications can bring with it. So, you know, that's kind of number one, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on for the rest of the week. Now, number two, just because I have 5 of them, and I want to make sure that I share with you guys kind of where I'm coming from. Not asking you guys to agree with it. I'm just asking you to open your minds and perhaps listen to it and take it away and sit with it and see if, you know, you agree or if you don't agree. And I'd love to hear from you either way. I don't live in a world within my life where I have to be the one that's right for every single situation, every single environment. But I am that kind of person where I value the purpose of communication. And I believe that that's the single most powerful, foundational human interaction that we've really got to get to doing better than we've been doing. The second skill that I feel that we're not taught is we're not taught how to earn, save, and grow money. Now that also is another big one. Not one that I'm going to be tackling today, but it is one that I want to tackle at a later date. So many of our problems, the anxiety, the fights, the infrastructure that we've created in our beautiful Mother Earth has been created with the understanding that very few people actually understand money. We're not taught what and how to make it, how to grow it, how to understand it, how to share it in our school systems or even at home. So that's number 2. Number 3, which actually leads to number 4, is we don't really know when to say yes or when to say no. Now, that's also a really big one. Now, the reason I'm bringing that to your guys' attention is if we were to actually take 10 seconds before we decide on something, on whether it's going to be a yes for us or whether it's going to be a no for us, we may in fact actually be making a decision that's very different from the decision we would have made if we didn't take that space and moment to just sit with it. So I really feel, and I feel that there's a lot of experts out there that can speak to this far better than I can. So it's not something, again, that I'm going to tackle in any kind of great length, but it is something that I do want to do a series on, where I want to bring in experts in this space to kind of really talk about how can we train, or how can we unlearn that which doesn't serve us in this space, to be able to open up the pores within our being, to be able to learn something new, learn something that perhaps would be better fitted for who we are as an individual, as a collective, and as humanity. So that's number 3 and 4, guys. I hope you're staying with me. And number 5, and probably also one of the biggest, if not the biggest, after or maybe in line with communications, I believe, is self-care. I don't think that any of us are truly taught how to self-care within ourselves. And there are so many aspects of who we are as people, right? The mind, the body, the soul, the spirit, the conditioning, or, the environment that we live in, the feeling that we have about ourselves, the feeling that we have about others, the feeling that others have about ourselves too. You know what I'm saying? I really feel that it's, the biggest reason why we have such a multi-billion-dollar industry out there that is really capitalizing and honing in on our lack of knowledge and understanding on self-care techniques. So there's the 5 of them, folks. I want you to really think about these during these times where we're being isolated. Let's let's focus on something positive for ourselves, guys, right? I mean, I know there's Netflix out there. I know there's Amazon. I know there's like, games are being downloaded left, right, and center, and we're all kind of going into the world of escapism a lot. At this time, I urge you, I ask you to join me and, a lot of people out there who are utilizing this time to better our lives, better our understanding of ourselves and the people in our lives, finding ways to create some positivity in our environments, I feel really comes from, within. I know that's such a cliche, but it's a cliche that I truly do believe in. And it is a cliche that we will be talking about for the rest of the week. Now, before I, continue on and kind of talk about the three most important tips that I've been giving to my clients these last 2 weeks, post-COVID, is I want to actually mention to you guys that I have one special guest per day, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, that are going to be coming on. They're experts in different areas and industries and spaces, and they're going to talk about, how to deal with so much time being confined in our homes from their perspectives. So I will be kind of talking to you shortly about who some of these individuals are. And I really hope that you'll join me. We're going to be going live here on Facebook Live and on Instagram Live every day, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That would put us at 9 a.m. On the West Coast, 5 p.m. in England, and I believe 10:30 p.m. in India, and wherever else you are in the world. Please check your time zones. Please share with people, to come and check this out, whether you're going to be on Facebook Live on my Raj Girn business page, or whether you're going to be here on my Raj Girn Instagram page. I really would love for you guys to share this with all the people out there that that you feel that could benefit from this. I'm honing in specifically for those of you who are just joining us on a social series this week called Big Personalities in Small Spaces. Spaces, places, I think I've called it both, right, Karam? Over the course of the last little while. But I think you guys get the drift. Okay, on to tell you about the three most important tips that I've been working through with my clients over the past couple of weeks. So the first, very simple, guys. None of these are going to be rocket scientist tips. None of these are going to be things that you haven't heard of. I didn't invent these concepts. They've been around since, the beginning of time, but they're things that we don't really think about because we take communications on every level for granted. So the first one is communicating with a purpose. So think about that for a moment. Communicating with a purpose. So the way I want you to look at this is, what do you need to accomplish in order to make that communication effective? So I'm going to say that again. What do you need to accomplish in order to make that communication effective? Right? I have to say that the biggest comeback from my clients for that one has been that, due to the anxiety of kind of being locked into an environment with, their families and people for a long period of time, that being able to create order in the home and kind of reshifting and understanding that we have these many different personalities that all need to be able to live cohesively together, right? So a lot of them have been dealing with bursts of, anger, bursts of verbal diarrhea, for want of a better word. This is the way I want you to look at this one. And it's one that I really feel, although it's simple in its ideology, is something that a lot of us don't do on a daily basis. And a lot of us definitely need to think about doing it right now. And that is, if you look at verbal diarrhea, what is it? What actually is it in the kind of conventional sense of you know, if I'm going to use an analogy as something like diarrhea, which, excuse me for those of you who don't want me to talk about an analogy like that, but I just feel it's the best one to address this particular point of communicating with purpose. So when you think of diarrhea, right, when is it that you suffer from it? You suffer from it when you have an upset stomach, when perhaps maybe you ate something that doesn't suit you, you've kind of ingested something that doesn't suit the health of your internal environment. Am I correct? So how does it manifest itself? It manifests itself in a very unhealthy manner. And it shows you that, you know, you're not doing well. Your internals are not healthy, right? It gives you a very, very clear sign that you've got to do something to shift the dynamic that's in your internal space. So I want you to think about that from a internal space that is about dealing with your own internal being, right? Now, I know that sounds really deep, but it really isn't, guys. It really isn't. I want you to think about putting everything that you want to communicate with yourself and others into perspective. Why do you need to think or feel or say what it is that you need to put out there? Like, have a moment with that and think about, what is the objective? What am I looking to actually accomplish with this particular communications that I want to put out there? And even with the communications that we, you know, speak about within our own selves, right? Like, what is the perspective of that communication? It's really powerful when you sit with it and think and ask yourself that question. Write it down, put it up on a sticky note, put it on lipstick on your mirror, like I do in my washroom, and ask yourself a fundamental, foundational question in communications. And that is, why am I communicating this right now? What is the outcome that I'm looking to accomplish? If you ask yourself that question, it'll help you lead into the second most important tip that I've been giving my clients, and that is listening to self and others. So let me just say that again: listening to yourself as well as listening to others. Now, that's another cliche one. It's not something new, right? It's not something that you haven't heard before, but here's the thing. Are we doing it? Are we actually sitting and listening to how we're feeling about ourselves and about others? Are we actually listening and hearing what we are getting back from other people? Because if we did, I think that, you know, the way that we communicate in our environments today, especially right now when we've been pulled to task, would be a very different world that we would be living in, right? It would be a different world in our homes that we'd be living in. Because honestly, conflict is the only other thing, the only other byproduct of not thinking about, number one, putting everything in perspective, and number two, listening to yourself and to others, right? So these are the two important ones. And I want to give you another analogy about listening to yourself and others. So in other words, what I mean by that is not losing yourself, but also not allowing others in your space to lose themselves either, right? So it's similar to this. Now, if you took a whole bunch of food ingredients and you put them into a blender, right? And you kind of blended them all together, what will happen is all of these individual ingredients, which by themselves have their own characteristics, have their own smells, their tastes, and their you know, and touch. Once you put it into a blender, all of them, the taste, the structure, all gets lost, and a new entity is formed, right? This new entity is going to be something that we recognize as one product. sorry, I was just listening to the train out there, as one product that is a product that we don't really know what it all took to create that product. All we know is that the most pungent of the ingredients, for example, garlic, right, is something that we know is in there if that was one of the ingredients we threw in, right? But then something like, I don't know, I can't really think about an ingredient. Can you think of an ingredient right now, Karen, that's not really strong? Like an ingredient that doesn't have like a really pungent taste to it. That would be lost. Like that you wouldn't even know was even in there. So that's similar to the environment in your immediate space at home that I want you to think about. I want you to think about why listening to yourself and why listening to others is so crucial at this time. It's crucial simply because we don't want to be a whole other blended entity where the only aspect that we recognize is the one that really, really stands out strong. Every single individual needs to stand out strong. Every single ingredient needs to have its own merit, has its own value, and needs to work cohesively. Another analogy for you is like a salad. That actually is how we need to communicate at home. We need to be a salad. Now, this is not an analogy that I came up with. It's an analogy that I heard from a very prominent marketing guru in New York, I would say probably around 10 years ago. He basically said that the most healthiest environments to live in and to work in is if we were to look at ourselves as ingredients in a salad. So the integrity of each ingredient is kept, right? Like we know that this is the lettuce and this is the tomato and this is the cucumber and what have you, right? And as separate pieces, when you throw them into your salad bowl, they hold their structure, their visual look, and their taste. But then here's the thing. You still need something that will kind of hold it all together. And that's kind of your salad dressing, right? So if you look at your salad dressing as being the entity that holds these pieces together as one cohesive salad, where each of the individual pieces, ingredients and what have you, have their own day in the sun, so to speak, all have this equal ability, to shine and to kind of, hit your taste buds. Look at communications in that way while you're living at home. Think about your family as a salad. In a salad bowl, where every single ingredient needs to have its importance and its day in the sun. And all of us are being kept together by the salad dressing. And the salad dressing, absolutely, you got it, is the communications. Is us looking at putting everything in perspective. That was the first point I said, is listening to ourselves as well as others. So here's the thing about that. You got to listen to yourself in order to understand what it is you need to tell other people so that they can understand what's happening with you, right? You also, on the flip side of that, need to listen to other people equally as importantly as you would listen to yourself, right? Because that's the only way that number 3 is even going to be effective. Number 3 is very simple. It's communicating with purpose. I want you to think about that for a moment, right? Communicating with a purpose. So what is it at the end of everything that we want and we need to be able to accomplish? What is it that we need to accomplish with communication? We need to have purpose, right? What, why, and same with other people. What is the what and why from their perspective? I call it communication discipline. It's something that I feel that isn't a term that people really talk about that much. We stick with all the pop cultural terms around communications. I feel that discipline should always go hand in hand and should be synonymous with the word communication. And what does that really, come down to, folks? I mean, like, really, where have we come in this conversation of the 3 points that I wanted to bring out to you guys, and the 3 things that fundamentally we all know, but we're not really focusing on and understanding how they kind of work together. What is it? It's collaborative communication, right? It's like, why is it that one person needs to be the winner? There is no winner if there is a loser on the other side of your communication chain, is there? There isn't. So that's something I want you to really think about, guys. So that's kind of what I wanted to kind of talk about today. That's the focus of today's session is. And I want you to go away and think about this. Number 1, let me just go through this again. Number 1, putting everything into perspective. It's the number 1 most effective rule to communication. We don't want any diarrhea, folks, right? Those of you who are just joining me, you won't know what that analogy is all about. So I urge you to listen back. We will be, putting this recording out so that those of you who couldn't catch it like in real time get the opportunity to, get the benefits from it. Number 2 is listening to self equally as you listen to others. And for those of you who are always listening to others and not self, you got to think about that one, right? Any one is not more important than the other. And you've got gurus out there that say that, if you look after other people, that's going to, feed your soul. And there's people out there that say that, it's got to be about you before it can be about others. This is what I say. I say this as somebody that's dealt with people in communications in multiple facets and spaces and industries over the last 2 decades in this as an expert, and a decade prior as an entrepreneur in hospitality and health. There is absolutely no effective communications if we are not equally listening to self and equally listening to the people that we need to communicate to and with. Number 3, communicating with a purpose. So that one is really important, guys. And it's not something you can accomplish if you're not listening to self and others, which is number 2. And listening to self and others isn't possible if you're not putting how you feel into perspective. So even if you go the other way, you look at purpose, listening, perspective, it works, in all different aspects. I will be putting this into the feed. Number 1, putting everything into perspective before you speak, so it's not verbal diarrhea. Number 2, listening to self and others equally, so that you're not projecting yourself on others. You don't want to be a blended analogy of ingredients. You want to be the salad bowl where everyone gets to shine, and cohesively you use communications to bring each other together. And number 3, communicating with a purpose, guys. Communication discipline, collaborative communication. And that, folks, that's where I want to leave today's discussion. I hope that it's been helpful. And if any of you guys out there are like, oh my gosh, that's just so much information, and I just need more help with being able to figure out how to work through these, absolutely feel free to send me an email at askcoaching@rajgurn.com. That's askcoaching@rajgurn.com. I'm putting it out there for any of you guys that feel that you need a little bit of additional help at this time. There couldn't be a better time in our human space today than any time in the past to actually regroup with the foundations of communications. It's just really going to be the big difference in your life for peace and tranquility and no anxiety, and for us to just have a world where we can, just collaboratively have equal voice to be able to be heard and valued. And that's the important thing. I mean, really, I've been in this space for so long. and I've seen so much come my way, and I have been all of the, negatives of this. So I can speak from experience. I can also speak from experience of working with so many people, in the workforce, people also in my family and my friend zone as well. These are the three fundamentals. I'm going to say them one more time before we close off. Number one is putting everything into perspective. Understand what it is that you need before you start to talk about it. No more verbal diarrhea, guys. Number two, listen to yourself and listen to others so that you're not projecting and you're not having a tennis match with each other where, one person, gets to win. It's just not what we want to do with our lives. It's not what we want to do with the lives of the people we love. We want to be a fabulous ingredient in a salad bowl full of positive and effective communications, right? That's what we want. And number three, always communicate with a specific purpose. Now, if you know why you're saying or doing what you're doing, you're going to be better at being able to communicate it to yourself first, that inner voice, and then to others. So I'm going to leave you guys with that for today, and want to just give you a little bit of information about who some of my guests are going to be over the course of the next few days. Here we are. I'm so excited. I have to say that when I had this thought that I felt compelled to talk about the importance of communications at this time, especially, and to kind of lift some of that, anxiety, that energy that we're putting out there in the world during this time, which obviously we have for so many other reasons, and rightfully so. I just don't want us to have it in the space of communications. I feel that there is a choice here that we can make. When I put it out there to, some of my friends in various different industries who are experts within their own right, literally, it was yesterday that I reached out to a number of them, and they all came back and they're like, absolutely, Raj, absolutely. I would like to serve in the capacity that I can and to help people in your series. And again, for those of you who are just joining me, a week-long series, I'm doing here a social series called Big Personalities in Small Spaces, Places. My first guest tomorrow, by the way, all of my sessions will be at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Again, that is 9 a.m. West Coast time. That is 5 p.m. England time, and that is 10:30 p.m. in India, and wherever else you are in the world. I want you to tune in. I want you to share with everyone out there that there is a time every single day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I may even extend it into the weekend and beyond. I don't know yet. I'm just going to see how it goes. I'm just going to putting it out there because I just feel, I feel compelled, to help people declutter all of the kind of crap that we just hold within our hearts and our minds and our souls. And, this is the way that I know how to do it, is to just help people to be able to regroup on the foundations of how to effectively communicate with self and others, especially during this time when it's even more difficult. And social distancing is creating a byproduct of too much family time for some of us out there, not enough me time. And that balance, which is something we're not so used to, requires a lot of effective communications for us to really be able to understand what it is that we want to try and accomplish for ourselves and the ones that we love. Right, guys? So tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time will be my dear friend, Tara Natalie. So for those of you who don't know about this fabulous woman, she and I met in 2005 when I did the launch of Anoki Magazine in New York City. She followed, with a cover story that we did of her when she started her recording career. Today, Tara is a very, renowned spirit warrior. She is a yoga studio owner and teacher. She is a master Reiki healer and a health coach. Now, she is also a proud mother of two gorgeous children, daughter Ava and son Aryan, and she's married to my guy, who I absolutely love, fabulous superstar recording artist, our very own Jay Sean. They live in New York City, and she's agreed to participate. She's going to be in tomorrow, and she's actually going to be tackling communications from a mindful perspective. So she's going to be dealing with mindful communications, something that I feel is where I want to start with bringing in collaborations with my guest experts. I feel that the very first place anyone needs to start is with mindful communication. So make sure that you come by for that tomorrow. Wednesday, I still have yet to fully confirm. Thursday, I have my dear friend Shalini Vadera. I've known her since 2003 when Anoki Magazine did a feature on her and her new book, now a bestseller, called Passport to Beauty. Shalini is a serial beauty entrepreneur who is currently building out a new company called Ready Set Jet. She has teams in the US, Europe, and Asia that are equipping an entire generation of girls in India with necessities, proper education, understanding on self-care, and the ability to stand on their own 2 feet. Shalini will be talking about the importance of self-care techniques at a time when spas and salons are closed around the world. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's like the biggest OMG for people like me. It's just like, I mean, luckily my nails are still like, if you can, I don't know if you can see, my nails are still kind of intact. Facebook people, Instagram people, but I don't know for how long it will be. So she is going to be talking about much needed insights into how to tap into home remedy ideas and concepts, because you guys know this, I know this firsthand, that communicating self-worth to others and to ourselves has a lot to do with how we feel about ourselves, right? I mean, I know firsthand that when I feel good about myself, that I'm so far better equipped for communicating effectively with others. And I know that I'm right when I say that, you know, you guys understand where I'm coming from here. So Shalini will be hanging out with me on Thursday. So make sure that you tune in for that. And Friday, I have Karen David, who I've known since 2005. She has graced the 5th anniversary edition cover of Anoki Magazine way back when. She attended the Anoki Awards on a couple of occasions. She's performed and received awards. Karen is a Hollywood actor. She's appeared in countless shows like Gallivant, Once Upon a Time, Fear the Walking Dead, and most recently, she appears as a character of Disney's Mira Royal Detective, the very first all-exclusive South Asian cast for a very first Disney all-South Asian animated series. So, I mean, it's just, how can it get better than that, right, guys? So she is a triple threat. She's an actor, she's a singer, and for those of you who know her personally, one of the funniest gals you'll ever know. She's agreed to be on my Friday session, and what's great about that session is she's going to be bringing on with her her 4-legged son, Milo. So we're going to be tackling big personalities in small places, spaces, for all of you who have pet families. Now, I don't know about you, but you know, you can't just think about yourself in these environments. You got to think about your pets. They are used to you being out of the house, for most of us, for at least 8 hours a day. Now they are dealing with too much family time. So we've got to also look at ways in which we can be mindful of the fact that they also need me time, guys. I mean, like, they can't be smothered during this time and then we go back to work when things are all sorted. And then they have to suffer the consequences of having to be retrained. So, you know, on a serious note, me and Karen will be talking about that. I'm going to be bringing my 4-legged son, Maximus, into Friday's session as well. So I hope you guys will join us. Quick recap. Tomorrow we have got Tara Natalie, who is a health coach. She's a Reiki master. She's a yoga teacher, and she's going to be talking about mindful communications. Wednesday, I've got yet to confirm. Thursday, we have serial beauty entrepreneur Shalini Vadera, who is going to be talking about home remedies for self-care during these times. Friday, I've got Karen David coming in with her four-legged son Milo. I'll be joined, of course, with my four-legged son Maximus, and we're going to be talking about not creating a claustrophobic environment for our pets, guys. You know you're doing it. I'm trying my hardest not to, but I got to tell you, I need tips. I need tips to understand how to kind of handle that. So she is also, I just saw an update here. Karen just sent me a message to say that her fabulous husband, music producer Carl Ryden, is also going to be in on that. So Karen, you know that this is going to be a family affair, darling. We're going to be bringing you in on Friday. So we are going to be talking about too much family time, not enough me time for our pets, because we got to think about them too. So that's me, folks, over and out for today. I really hope today has been an uplifting, insightful, meaningful, entertaining session for you. I kind of put this all together last minute. So apologies if, you didn't get the full, information that you feel you needed to. But as I said, to deep dive any of these three different important tips for effective communication during these times of being kind of, stuck in an environment with so many, personalities who we love and we don't want to hate during this time, feel free to contact me at askcoaching at rajgurn.com. Sorry, I was just reading something. Askcoaching at rajgurn.com. Okay, my darlings, I really, really, truly thank you for being with me today. And I look forward to you guys tuning in tomorrow and for the rest of the week. And I'm truly blessed that you've hung it out with me. Please be safe. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves and be happy. That's me out. Love you all. Mwah, mwah. See you tomorrow.